Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome, dear friends, to Satsang. Happy to be with you all, as always. Today, I'd like to share with you a poem that I shared about a month ago. Some of you were there, some of you weren't, so I'm going to read it again. And then I'm going to talk with you a little bit about a couple of responses that I got to it in order to illustrate to you the importance of being aware of the nature of your own internal conversations and how asking yourself the question, am I aware, can help you to see when you are aware, when you have returned to a moment of clear perception, and when you were lost in the ego a moment before. So first I'll share the poem with you again. Please just relax, open your heart, let the words flow through you as though you aren't there. Don't need to listen to anything, no listener. This is hearing without a hearer, presence without a doer. So just be here and let the words flow through. Awareness, clear and empty, here and now, liberates all arising, all objects in the mind. Unborn, empty, naked, before all else. Pristine awareness is the nature of truth, the self. I, liberated by awareness, all that arises is liberated in its own nature, here and now. Nothing else matters. This is a pointer in the form of a poem. A pointer that if you open your heart, don't try to grasp with the mind, can give you a taste of the one self. But these pointers, these words in the form of a poem, can't be comprehended by an egoic mind, by a mind that's closed, by a heart that isn't open and free. This is why we come together for the first few minutes of our satsang together. We sit quietly in the quiet space of satsang, association with truth, which can really only be found in the silence. In this space of silent awareness, we come together, and if the heart opens, these kinds of words, this kind of a pointer can penetrate, and you can get a glimpse of the one self which you are. So now I'll share with you the first response that I got the day after I read that poem came from someone who was there in the satsang that evening. Dear Rishi, love and peace are here, having received your grace. Thank you. Looking at you, the divine is feeling the magic dimension of beingness, and heart is profoundly touched and overflowing with love for the self. Mind tries to get involved, send some thoughts to grasp what's going on, but it has no chance. Too late. Letting go the smallest interest of understanding anything and falling into nothingness happened already, totally open-hearted. Heart meets, unfolds in undescribable joy and happiness here, and with each time looking at you, it feels expanding endlessly. And in the same time, at the same time, it is not a looking at you anymore, but looking at myself. In this thought-free moment, looking at Rishi happens with open eyes, but sees nothing but empty space. Seeing and being the unseen. This is so beautiful. The metaphor that's often used about teachings and pointers is the metaphor of the full moon in the sky, the bright sky at night. And the sage says, there's the moon. And the seeker says, I can't see anything. And the sage says, you are looking at my finger. Look beyond. Look past it. If you only hear words and your mind and your heart are closed, you are looking at the finger. So when you come to satsang, into this meeting, which is an association with truth, remember to check in and ask yourself, am I aware? And to know, yes, I am aware. And then rest. In this resting, you are looking at the moon, not at the finger, regardless of what words I use. You will see past them as this person has, to the one self, which is eternally here and now. So what am I meaning when I say you are looking at the finger And this applies whether you're in satsang or you're just in your daily life. If you are looking at the finger, you are listening to words, chasing concepts, pushing things away, grasping at things. Everything is happening within the context of me, mine, within the context of the ego experience. Isn't it so? You're caught in some way, and you are dancing with words and concepts, experiences and objects. You feel confused and lost. You feel as though you cannot find presence anymore. This next response I'm going to read you is the response of the ego. It's not important about the words. Just to know, recognize if you can see this from time to time in yourself. I was trying to tell you that your teaching is about none of it matters has dragged me down in the darkness. I very much want to get back to the light, the love, peace, and understanding that matters a lot. How can you believe nothing matters and not get depressed? This is an important question for this person. And so there is the heart of compassion, which is here and recognizes the difficulty that this person is experiencing. But I'm not really interested in sharing with you my answer to this person for this particular situation. What I want to share with you is just this feeling sense. Ask yourself, what was the feeling sense of this first response? Could you feel the heart in it? Could you feel the presence of self-awareness, of self-realization in that first response? And can you feel the suffering and the confusion of this second response? The reason I wanted to share these two experiences with you today, is so that you can begin to look at your own experience, not just in this moment, but throughout your day or your week, throughout all of your experience. And you can begin to identify when you are open, presence, heartfelt, peaceful, and calm, and when you are doing the dance of ego. When these two responses are put side by side, it's very easy to see that the response, to see which response is coming from the open heart and which response is coming from the ego state, from the confused state of identification with the thoughts and ideas, when the truth is not penetrating into the moment by moment awareness. It's very easy to see this difference. But sometimes when it's happening for us in our day-to-day experience, it's not so easy to notice when we slip from our own self-aware happiness into identification with some ego state, is it? Sometimes it's not so easy to notice this. This is why I encourage you throughout your day, regardless of what is going on, throughout your experience, regardless of what is appearing, to keep asking yourself, am I aware? And recognizing in that moment, yes, I am aware. Doing this simple, asking this simple question and hearing this very quick, present recognition through the answer yes makes it possible for these ego bubbles, I'll call them, to rise up in the space of awareness and then simply pop and disappear. This happens when there's no grasping, no clinging, no belief that what the mind is saying to you is true. The previous answer, the first response actually, is what one hears in the open space of an open heart, which knows itself to be that one self. And maybe it won't declare it in a poem for you as it has for this person, this beautiful poem in which they recognize, and it comes as clear as possible to them that they are the one self, and that what they are experiencing at that moment is not the limited ego self. It's the direct perception expressed in words, so limited in that way, but nonetheless, the direct feeling perception, I am, I exist, presence is here as the one self. So I encourage you to keep asking this question, no matter what is present in the field of awareness. Whether you are experiencing the kind of poetic moment of the first response, or you are experiencing the confusion and the uncertainty of the second response. The confusion in that response, by the way, I wanted to say, is that this person understood the end of this poem in which I'm saying, nothing else matters, meaning nothing else but awareness matters. Nothing else but the self matters. And this was interpreted by this person as, how can you believe nothing matters? This is taking the words literally. This is seeing the finger and not the moon. Because the poem clearly does not say that nothing in this world matters, nothing in this life matters. It says, in fact, everything matters on the way to self-realization, when the understanding is there that nothing else truly matters but waking up and coming into this moment of recognition. I am the self. So I encourage you to keep asking yourself throughout your experiences, am I aware? Who is thinking these thoughts? Whether the thoughts are that you are the self, or that you think someone has told you that your life doesn't matter, understand that your task, your sadhana, is always to question what the mind is telling you. Sri Ramana Maharshi said, just keep asking, who is this I? And who is being referred to when I say I? And by doing this, you won't get trapped in fanciful thinking, and you won't get trapped in the projections of your mind as they move out into the world. Instead, you will come to know yourself as being consciousness. that which contains both of these possible responses and a million others, but is not identified with any of them, and returns to its clear presence as the one self through the recognition that that which is aware, that which is before all else, is here now and makes all else, the knowing of all other experiences, possible. You are that. You are that one awareness. When it is eternal, pristine, open, loving, compassionate, kind toward oneself and others, toward one's own experience and the experience of others. So keep noticing that you are aware. And let the bubbles of conditioning that rise up in that pop and dissolve. There is no doubt that if you continue in this sadhana, everything that you are not is going to show up in order to be burned up. The secret to letting it burn up or letting the bubbles pop is don't grab at them. Remain aware. Remain as who you are. That which is aware. Keep letting go. Don't believe anything that your mind tells you. It is not the mind that says, I am the self. It is the recognition of the heart in its own clarity and in its own peace, which says, that which is aware is here now. Sat Chitananda, being, consciousness, and bliss, is my nature. This does not come from the mind. This comes from the heart, which is open, clear, compassionate, here as presence in this moment. Challenge everything that comes to your mind. Be sure that you are looking at the moon and not the finger. The words mean nothing. The feeling of your own presence is everything. You are that. So I invite you to speak with me either about my comments or about anything else that's present for you at this moment. Hello, Ellie. Hello.
Hello. Hello, Rishi. How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
Good, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me all right with
Perfect.
headphones. Okay, great. I was wondering if you could kindly, please, give your wise insight in regards to the relationship between abandonment issues, traumas, and one's ability to let go, and the ability not to cling, and the impact it has on the ability of just let things flow and happen. Please.
So, yeah, let me ask you, have you, when these thoughts of abandonment or whatever come up for you, have you asked yourself, who am I referring to when I feel these feelings? And what was the result of that, if you don't mind sharing that?
I think is that part of the individualized identity that has been wounded. I've recently started to learn about the internal family system, which is the idea that we all have more sort of parts of ourselves that develop throughout our life, and all have a role and sort of an identity of their own, and they all have a role, and usually is to protect the self, but they create all together a personality, which in turns goes to cloud the ability of perceiving ourselves as the self. So actually this, let's call it philosophy, also has a recognition that there is a self beyond all of this individualized, don't even know, emotional, mental dance, let's say. I think I got lost, and
Yeah,
I'm not sure I answered your question. Sorry.
So no,
Well,
that's absolutely perfect. That's exactly right. Yeah, my question was, have you asked who is pursuing this question of abandonment?
yeah.
The reason that I asked you that is, and your answer was perfect, including leading you into confusion, because the mind can't understand this. Right?
Yeah.
It really can't understand this. And in one way, the Buddha said, pulling on any one of the threads of our experience is like pulling on a thread in a ball of twine or a ball of yarn. And what he meant by that was, you can never untangle it.
Mm.
If you've ever tried to pull a thread out of a ball of yarn, it just doesn't work. You just keep tightening the inner workings of the ball of thread, of the ball of yarn, and eventually you have to give up.
Mm.
And the mind is very much this way. And so this is just to tell you that understand there is a limitation to what you can understand with the mind. So when you pursue questions like abandonment, you pursue trauma.
Mm.
I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm saying just understand there's a limit to that. And going back to my sharing these two responses tonight, what I was hoping that you would understand, or all of you would understand, is that when you feel the response in your own body mind of clenching, which is what you feel in a way, in a manner of speaking, when you start to explore something like abandonment, right? Or something like that, some other strong emotion, some other traumatic experience that each and every one of us have had different kinds of traumatic experiences in our lives. And when we try to explore those too deeply, what we can notice is the difference between the open recognition of oneself as unlimited, open-hearted, compassionate, and free, and oneself that is pursuing understanding with the mind the nature of rising feelings like abandonment and so on. So I'm not telling you not to experience them, quite the opposite. I am saying, however, to notice that you will never get to understand them in the way that you want to understand them through the mind. You simply won't. But what you can understand is the difference between this heart that wants to be open and free and the heart that keeps pursuing mental understanding for emotional states and the clenching that goes along with that, which is like the trying to pull on the yarn out of the ball of yarn, and it just keeps tightening the ball of yarn. This kind of pursuit also just keeps tightening the mind around the egoic experience. Okay? And so this is what you experience as this kind of clouding or this kind of unclarity that comes from pursuing the causation of an intense feeling like an abandonment. So as soon as you begin to see this, you must come back to letting go. It has to be, you have to actually see yourself want to pursue an understanding which can't be grasped with the mind before you are willing to say, I've spent enough energy on that, and maybe I understand it and maybe I don't, but I'm not going to pursue it anymore because it's taking too much of my time and energy. And you'll go back to asking the question, who is this I that is abandoned anyway? Was she ever born? Does this experience, we're not saying it didn't happen, but does it limit you as much as you think it does? Or you feel that you're experiencing that it does limit you. So you ask yourself this question, these kinds of questions over and over, and you realize that if you try to tackle this question from 1,000 different points of view for the next 1,000 years, you'll still be grappling with this question. So what should I do? What can I do? Am I interested in grappling with this question for the next 100 years or the next 1,000 years? If you are, you will go ahead. If you see through this kind of question, then you'll say, what does it mean to be free? Am I free now? And I want to really say something that's this came up in a conversation I had with someone last week who was dealing with a similar kind of issue. And I asked her, could you have gotten to this moment right here, right now, without that trauma, without that sense of abandonment? And she said, just for a second, she thought about it, but then very quickly said, no, I couldn't have. I'm here in this moment because of this experience. And in that moment, she was liberated from that trauma. She understood in that moment that everything that happens for a reason, and that reason is it points us toward our already free state. If we go in the direction of trying to pull all the threads out of the ball of yarn, we will spend lifetimes doing that. So I encourage you not to stop doing what you're doing, but to realize that there's a limit to what it can do for you. And maybe ask yourself, how long do I want to spend on this question?
Thank you. This is actually where I'm at. after all the considerations and I have gone through all of this, and clearly I'm missing something, because more than an intellectual seeking, it's what I'm interested in is that ability to just let go. And I do appreciate that it's thanks to all my life's experiences that I'm here, and I'm grateful for everything that's happened. I just I feel still still feel that it's very hard for me to let go of things, and this is why, like, my understanding is that the reason behind is the abandonment feeling. So it goes into all the various reasons and this and that, and as you said, I'm not overly interested in understanding the dynamics more than I already do. What I'm interested in is just that opening the hand and the heart and letting go and letting things flow. And it feels like there's a very strong, very emotional response that kind of grabs my body and pulls me into a very materialistic way of perceiving. So
are you fed up with all of that? Is that what you're saying?
I
Have you
am.
come to the end of that?
I am. So this is why I sort of consider also a different approach, because it feels like if I try something and I'm not able to, then I'm kind of, okay, let's step back for a second. I'm going to continue what I'm doing, but maybe I can try also a different angle as well. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to the internal family system, because it fits in very well. It's like there is a self, and then there are a lot of other things in the way, which I understand they're just illusions, but it feels very real, and it feels like they're pulling me away from what is already here. So I understand the absurdity of all of this, but it's a mental understanding. There's still this clenching. I don't know if it makes sense at all.
Well, the thing that makes sense about it is I still don't hear you asking the question, who am I referring to when I say I? I have been abandoned. I am doing this. I am pursuing that. I am hurt. I am confused. I am always not I am in its purest sense, not in the purest sense of I exist, but I am in terms of what this body mind is experiencing. So in essence, you are still saying, I am going to find a way out for this body mind. And
Yes.
I am here to tell you there is no way out.
Yes, because the answer that comes up is it's a little girl. The little girl that went through this and that, which is an illusion.
You still are not willing to look at the non-existence of the little girl or the big girl.
Yeah.
Yeah?
This is my again, another word that says it all. The struggle is an understanding of the mind,
Yes.
and in an inability of the heart to just do it. That this is an illusion. Okay, it's like I'm in a dream. I'm still sleeping.
Yes, but the only answer is, yeah, but okay, so but do understand that I've known you some years now, and you need to understand that you are still looking within the context of the mind. Yes. For an answer. When I talk with you at one point, you are looking within this context, and then you are looking within that context, and then you are looking within this context over here, and then it's another context. So you are still looking within the context of, I need to solve this problem with my mind. And there's no end to that. There is no end to that. The mind has an infinite number, finds an infinite number of trees in the forest to hide behind. The only way you can solve that problem is to gain some perspective on the whole forest, not on the individual trees in the mind. So that's what the inquiry is for. But you have to have some faith that if you ask this question, who am I referring to? That it will come at some point to an end. But if you don't ask that question diligently and persistently, if you keep allowing yourself this feeling sense of me-ness, if you keep searching within the mind to try to solve that problem of the me experience, that every time you do that, you give up the inquiry. You put it on the back burner and you say, I'll do that later. Let me go look at this for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 6 years. Let me go look at this. Let me go look at that. Let me go look at the other. And you keep putting the question, who am I referring to? This indicates that there's a primal fear of dissolving the belief that one is the body and the mind. And this is a fear that everyone has, but it is the only way in the end to come to the realization that you are already free, that you have been free all along, and that every time you go into a new modality or a new way of thinking or an old way of thinking that you take on again, every time that happens, you are postponing the recognition that you are already free. So keep going until you get tired of all these games. But you will always have to, at some point, come back. You will come back. I know you will. You always come back. So instead of going away and coming back and going away and coming back, you are like this story that is told in Vedanta all the time about this person who is trying to be free, and they are constantly walking. You have been here in Tamil Nadu. For those of you who haven't, here in South India during the hot of the summer, it is extremely hot and it is extremely hard to be outside. But there is this story about this yogi who's walking through the south of India, and it's just so hot, and the landscape is parched and it's a very arid, and suddenly this yogi comes upon this big shade tree, which is standing out there in the middle of this heat. And he says, oh, this tree. And he runs under the tree, sits down against the tree trunk and leans back and says, oh, this is wonderful. And I think I'll just stay here for a few minutes. And stays for a few minutes and cools down, and the shade is beautiful and wonderful, and the oxygen is much better, and the moisture is there from the leaves of the tree, and he's really enjoying himself. And then he gets bored, and he gets more bored, and he gets more bored, and suddenly he stands up and walks back out into the heat of the desert and starts trucking along again, hoping to find another tree. And of course he doesn't in the story. And we are like this for a long time when we come to the practice of inquiry, or the practice of looking at the source of this feeling I am, rather than at all of the various phenomena that can rise in the body, mind, and world. And we walk out into the burning, scorching sun again, And we think we're going to find the answer by walking around out there in the burning, scorching sun. And we end up turning around at some point and going back to the shade of the tree. And the inquiry is this shade tree that we ultimately we have to come to. We're not going to find any answers in any other way, in any other method. Whether it's a form of meditation or it's a psychological practice or something, we are eventually going to have to ask, who am I? There's no other way. And the beginning of this path of inquiry is to ask, who am I referring to when I hear the mind say, I this, I that, I need this, I need that, I think this, I feel that. We have to get really tired of that, believing we are the body and the mind. So please continue doing what you're doing, but understand that the success of the kind of thing that you're doing is to fail over and over and over, to get really tired of it. And this is true for all of you who have some idea that the spiritual practice or the psychological practice or whatever that you are doing is going to somehow liberate you into freedom. It simply is not. Keep it up as long as it gives you comfort. But understand that eventually you have to ask, who is this I that keeps demanding an answer? For me, this thing happened so spontaneously. And it happened because after years of meditation, of sitting for many hours a day and working and working and working and working, one day, this question rose up in me. And the question was, who meditates? And all my meditation and all my practice from years crumbled in that instant. All my methods, all my practices, all my effort, everything crumbled. There was nothing left but the recognition of this one aware self. So you choose. Keep going. Keep trudging through the desert of the mind, or come into the heart and ask persistently and consistently, who am I referring to?
Thank you. Thank you. It's funny.
End it once for all.
Sorry, I don't know. It's funny because it's when we met last year and I was in Tiro, it was all simpler and easier, and then coming back to the West,
Yeah.
It's funny how the mind is so persuasive. It goes like, yeah, you keep doing, this is right.
Yeah.
It doesn't harm to also add something else, but what I
Yeah,
heard was the addition is actually taking away my focus
yes.
from. So it's like, yeah, just
And it
something
takes
more,
away the time.
And
Yeah, but but the benefit of these kinds of practices and these kinds of pursuits is that we eventually come to realize that we are spending a whole lifetime pulling on a piece of yarn that's never going to untangle. And so then we are more interested in looking at the possibility that the yarn was never tangled in the first place. And that's what I'm pointing you toward.
Thank you.
Don't give up, Ellie. It's right there in front of you. It's closer than your breath.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello?
Oh, hello, this is TJ.
Hello, TJ.
How are you this morning? Thank you for being here.
Yes.
I'm nervous. This is my first time talking, and I tend to formulate my questions as the thoughts are coming, but I've tried to simplify it. I I know I've been in this place before of being in my center, in my true knowing, and in my body, and I've been finding myself slipping out of that a lot lately into a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and feeling like my brain keeps hijacking the intelligence in my heart and in my belly also. And a lot of it has to do around decision making. Um, and I've come to the realization I've usually seek outside advice, and this has just caused me to go on astray so many times in my life, and I keep coming back to this
Very
place
good.
where I can be in my center. But I'm a twin, so we made a lot of decisions together growing up. I had very codependent parents that didn't respect my preferences, and I think I was just conditioned to kind of leave myself a lot. And I don't know, I'm just trying to find that like comfort in myself, and then I just have really big decisions to make, and I'm very scared of making the wrong decision, even though I don't think that can be done. But I'm just so tired of being in this fearful place and just not trusting myself and just
You don't know
trying to
yourself,
find.
TJ. TJ, the problem is that you don't know yourself.
Mm,
You think you know yourself. You think you know yourself in the ways that you just described. You're, the child of codependent parents, the twin, these emotions which you don't understand. This is the way you are describing yourself, but I want to reassure you that you are not that. That is not who you are. Those are the conditioned experiences that have told you that this is who you are. These are the cultural experiences that you've had that have told you that this is who you are. This is what we've all understood ourselves to be to a certain point, our gender, our family of origin, our country of origin, and so on. But what the inquiry at the very beginning tells us is you are not that. So that the question, who am I, can be asked, because what you're looking for is this self-knowledge of who you really are, not who you are on the surface according to your parents and your culture and your birth, or according to your thoughts, your emotions, and so on. Who am I really? This is the whole point of the inquiry, is to move us beyond this experience of being a limited, body-bound, mind-bound, emotional-bound personality. And so I just want to encourage you to put all of that aside as you're able to, and simply begin the inquiry in earnest. Begin asking yourself, am I aware? If you answer yes, which I know you will, right? If I say to you right now, are you aware? Do you say no or do you say yes?
I would say, yes, I am.
You would say, yes, I am. Beautiful. Very good. You don't yet trust that. I can hear that in your voice. You don't yet trust that you are sufficient in that, and that to know that is your nature is really the solution to all of your difficulties. If you know without any doubt that you are the one self, that which is aware here now, then you are already free It's not to say that these thoughts won't come up or that memories from the past won't come up. It's to say that when they come up, they will not bind you. Why will they not bind you? Because you know I am not that. I am not that. But it's not just a matter of negation. It's more a matter of knowing what you are. Because if you say to all of your thoughts, emotions, sensations, experiences, I am not that, I am not that, I am not that, I am not that. This is the neti portion of the Advaita teaching. If this is your constant companion for a period of time, it very naturally comes to you in some moment. Well, if I am not all of these things, if I'm not these experiences, if I don't identify anymore with my upbringing, if I don't identify anymore with this feeling in my heart and mind of feeling trapped or feeling confused or indecisive, if I don't attach to those feelings and claim them as mine, if I am not this and not this and not this, it comes quite naturally. Then who am I? And this is the beginning of the progression into the recognition that you are the source of all and that you are already free and already limited. This takes some effort and it takes some time, but begin now. Begin now. Don't wait until you've come to all your big decisions. Don't wait until you feel like everything has been resolved. This is what I was saying to Ellie. Trying to wait until you resolve all of the potential problems or resolve all of the difficult emotions that you feel, as everyone does who takes a body until liberation happens. This is like trying to pull the strings out of a ball of yarn. You will take forever. The Buddha said, you can never know the answer to all of these questions and their causes. So he said, let them rest. Simply find out who you are before all of this. If you don't attach to the stories of your own experience about who you are, what your gender is, how old you are, who your siblings are, who your parents are, what your life experience has been, what your life experience is now, what you are afraid of in the future, the moments of depression, anger, upset that you feel, if you simply don't attach to any of that, then the question can rise, who am I? But that question is probably not going to rise on its own. And so I encourage you to take up the recognition that you are not the body-mind, so that you can ask this question. If I am not the body-mind, and I'm not the conditioning, and I'm not the habit patterns, and I'm not the past, and I'm not the future, I'm not the worry and the dread, then who am I? And use every single one of these experiences of worry and dread and uncertainty and not knowing to ask the question, who am I? The answers will come when you can quiet the mind enough to really pursue the question, who or what am I? And I'm not asking you to repress or suppress your experience or your thoughts or your emotions. I'm simply saying to you, look deeply into them. Look to where they come from. Look to the source of your ideas, the source of your thoughts, the source of your emotions. Look to the source and understand that you are not what you are seeing. There is something else before that, which is already free.
Thank you. I feel like I've been close to these places, or I've been there, but I haven't been able to sustain that. And it
Then,
feels so good when I'm there, but then these people that are my family don't have much of a spiritual practice, and then their fear becomes contagious. Like whenever I start getting far away from these constructs, they worry about me and pull me back in, and it's so
yeah,
complex to like
yeah, that's very
feel good in
difficult.
that.
Yeah, 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 that's really,
So
really
that
difficult.
confuses me further. I'm like, am I going
So,
crazy? They think I'm crazy right now.
no, well, but so for you, I think you need the most simple and direct um, practice that I can offer you at this moment, and that is in all of these situations, you need to do neti neti. Do you know neti neti? Not this, not this. So every time you feel these walls of conditioning closing in on you, because you see, it's not just your parents that are conditioned in a certain way. It's not just your family that's conditioned in a certain way. You are conditioned in that certain way because you grew up in that family. But it is time for you to acknowledge if you have come here tonight, if you have come here today, you are ready. You are here to understand you are not your conditioning. And the simplest and most direct way to do that is not to overthink it. Just keep going. Not this. I am not this. I'm not this. I am not this. I am not this. Every time you feel yourself getting pulled in, I am not this. I am not this. I am not this. And you may need to take breaks from that structure once in a while. I don't know whether you live with your family or whatever, but you might need to take breaks from that structure for a while. You may not be able to give them permission to keep sucking you back into that codependent relationship. You might have to put some distance on that for a while. This is true in all the spiritual traditions. Everyone is required at some point. No one has the perfect family. So if you want to know who you are, you have to be willing to say, not this, not this, not this. I am not this. I am not this daughter. I am not this son. I am not this child. I have no parents. I am not this. I am not this. I am not this. I am not this. And this is not a matter of denial of anything but your conditioning. And it is also through saying not this, not this, not this, and becoming firm about this. I am not this. I am not this. The question, who am I, then can arise naturally. But you also want to keep asking that question. If I am not this, then who am I? So that you can keep that distance that's necessary in order for you to keep looking toward the source of being. And instead of looking out into your conditioning and identifying with it, because that's all that's happening. These beings are showing you your conditioning. They are showing it to you. That's not the problem. If there's a problem, the problem is you still believe that you are that person they have conditioned you to be. I am here to tell you, you are already free. You are liberation itself. You are the one self. Now you have to stick to that. This is the more challenging part, as you said. So the way to not keep getting sucked back in is to be very firm about your ability, about your willingness to stay with the practice that you are not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. In the face of everything to the contrary, into the face, everyone, every condition you have, telling you over and over and over that you need to be who they think you are, not who you know yourself to be. Every single sadhak has to go through this. There is no way around it. But you're okay because you see, you've already said, I can feel these times when I feel this presence. I feel this liberation. I know that I am that. Now you have to become really firm. You have to know that you are that when all of your conditioning is popping up in front of you and other people are demanding that you behave according to the conditioning they gave you. You are the one self.
Thank you.
How does that sit with you?
It's a good reminder. And I did that when I was like 19. I'm 33 now, and they freaked out, and it was heartbreaking to put that space between us, but that's kind of codependency too. It's like that intense attachment. So it's just good to be
Oh,
reminded and good to
yeah,
be
yeah. Well, I
encouraged
can,
that
yes,
I
yes,
have
yes.
that freedom.
And I will tell you from my own experience also, coming from a challenging family situation as a child, that you don't need to push them away as people. You need to push away the conditioning. What does that look like? What that looks like is that in their presence, on the phone, whatever, you may be very, very quiet. And that's because you are in the presence of neti, not this, not this, not this, while still keeping your heart open to the beings which are also suffering as a result of the conditioning which they've experienced. So you don't need to push the people away. What you need to do is realize that you are not that identified being that is conditioned by the way they think of you. And also, I would just say, understand that people change. And I understand that your fear is there, that if you pull away in a certain way, that you're going to get the same reaction you got when you were 19. But, chances are over the last 15 years, they've changed a bit themselves. So if you keep your heart open and you allow them to have changed, and you don't expect that they are going to keep you in a codependent relationship, you will be far better off and you will feel far freer no matter what they do. So give them the space to change, give yourself the space to change, open your heart, but know when it's time to step back. Don't withdraw your love, but maybe you have to love from a distance. But all that while, knowing that you are undertaking a certain spiritual discipline, but all the while you are doing it because you are recognizing that you are not this conditioning, you are not that conditioning, you are not that emotion, you are not that codependency, you are not that. So that you can ask the question, who are you? Who am I?
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think I've gotten used to people like telling me who I am and
Yeah,
thinking they're right, or there's some hierarchy there that they know me better because I'm confused sometimes. So
yeah.
that's something I want to sit in and really explore, and then deepen just in the
So,
presence of
yes,
who am I.
yes. And understand that even when you feel confused, and you feel the power of your own conditioning, you are not that. You are the one who is aware of confusion. You are the one who is aware of fear. You are the one who is aware of conditioning. You are not the conditioning itself. You're not the emotion itself. You're not the fear itself. You are the one that is observing the fear, that is aware of the fear. Who is that one? This is your question.
Yeah, that brings a lot more spaciousness, a feeling of spaciousness.
Yeah. And eventually you'll be able to stand in that fear and stand in those moments of confusion. And you will simply know in the very quiet, small, and loving way, I am not that. I am the self. This still, quiet voice will come to you and tell you the truth of your own being as Sat Chitananda. Keep going.
Thank you, Rishiji.
You're welcome. Roberto. You have to turn on your microphone. Hello. I still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hello.
Okay. Okay, there it is.
Namaste, Guruji.
Namaste.
I haven't got any question. Me only thing I'm asking for is your blessing on the path of self-realization, nothing else.
Yes, this grace is always there. You have it.
Thank
All the best.
Thank you.
So I just want to make one comment. I want to return to what I spoke about at the beginning of this, and that is that you can come here week after week, and I hope that you will, as long as you feel the need to. You're always welcome. But I'm always going to be pointing you toward this constant attention that you need to give to whether what is in your mind is this recognition, I am the self, or it is the recognition that you are your conditioning, your body, your psychology, your issues, your trauma. You can know this in every moment of every day. And sadhana is about recognizing that these traumas, these conditionings, and so on, as they are rising or when you notice them, that you notice them not as this is who I am, but rather this is who I am not. This is the way not to get trapped by the mind. I am not this. I am not this. And come to this deeper understanding, whether it's only a mental understanding for this moment or whether it's already settling deep in your heart, that you are the one self. You are Sat, Chit, Ananda, being, consciousness, and bliss. Look deeply into your own mind and into your own habits of thought and let yourself go. Step away every time you can hear this mind reflecting on the conditioning, identifying with the conditioning, and identifying with the circumstances, identifying with the body. Notice the way that that happens for you, and then step away from it. I am not this. This is not a huge undertaking. It is a simple remembrance. I am not this. I am not this. So that the question, who am I, then can come forward. For many of us, the path first comes through knowing who we are not, so that the deeper question of who we are, or the deeper realization of who we are, can come up. This is why it's often said in Advaita that the path of the Advaita is not the path of discovering who you are anew. It is the path of uncovering who you have already always been. In order for you to discover who you have always been, you must be willing to deny the reality of the belief that you are your fear, your emotion, your thoughts, your past, your trauma. You are none of that. This is not to say it didn't happen or you don't have a memory of it. It's simply to say it is not the truth of who you are. Nothing about your past experience says anything about who you are. Come to the recognition that you are the one self. Every time you feel it clouded and blocked, simply sweep whatever is there aside and come to the realization that you are the one self. You are being, consciousness, and bliss. Even if it's just in your mind at this moment. You know, it's said in Buddhist practice that the reason we follow our breath and the reason we keep coming to peace and keep coming to calm is because one moment of mindfulness conditions the next moment of mindfulness. So if you think about that in terms of your own experience, what you realize is that if you have these tape loops going in your mind about your fear, your abandonment, your trauma, your drama, your thoughts, if you have these tape loops going and you let them go and you don't do anything to stop them or to interrupt them, what happens is that every moment you devote to that kind of thinking, that kind of belief, conditions that moment to come again another time. Maybe it stops temporarily through some pleasure or some distraction, but it will come again. But also a moment of presence, of recognition. I am the one self. I am being, consciousness, and bliss. Settling deeply, relaxing into that knowledge, even if it's just a mental concept, will also cause it to manifest again at another moment. This is just the mechanics of mind. Mind loves habit. For those of you who feel like you are in a rut, just understand that the mind can be in a rut, but you are not. But you might have to make some effort. You might have to keep telling yourself that which is aware is here now. You might have to keep looking for the source. Where does thought come from? Where does emotion come from? Where do these spontaneous thoughts of drama and trauma and the past and the future, where do they rise from? In doing so, you give up the habit of attaching to them, identifying with them. And you give yourself the opportunity to know yourself as peace, as being, as consciousness, which is before the experience of the mind. So keep coming back. Be kind with yourself. Be persistent. Never give up. There will come a moment, or several moments, when you will remember who you are. And one day, you will stop forgetting, because you will have conditioned that moment in your mind, in your heart, in your sense of being, through the recognition that you are that which is aware, here, now, not somewhere else, not in the future, here, now. That you are that. You have always been that. Keep going. Love yourself. Love the people around you. Be kind, beginning with yourself. Everyone wants only one thing, and that is to be happy. Forgive yourself. Forgive your parents. Forgive your siblings. Forgive your exes. Forgive everyone. Forgive all of the people who simply don't see you as you know yourself to be, full of love, compassion. This is your true nature. You are already free. Know yourself to be that. Hari Om. Tat Sat.